So good day, sir. Today I will present my case study review on the two papers. So for the first paper, which is a case study in embedded system design and engine control unit. So for the first question, who has done the work? Luciano Lavano, Attila Jurecka, Claudio Sanso, and Alberto Sangiovanni Vincentelli. What were their goals or objectives? To advance the state-of-the-art in embedded system design by analyzing an engine control unit. What were their questions? The researchers were concerned on how to advance the design of embedded systems by looking and analyzing to an engine control unit. What were their methods utilized on this paper? High-level functional specification, functional simulation, and as well as architecture and selection mapping. How did they form the dataset? They measured the simulation performance based on engine speed and compared one another by the cycles per second in both graphics and no graphics. What were their findings? So for their findings, the SRL specification was too expensive and yields results that are comparable to hand-optimized code but sensitive to module size. Small modules are cheaper but are prone to excessive overhead, while larger modules are better for optimization but are expensive. Chaining the execution of several modules without returning control to the real-time operating system is relatively cheap, does not cause any potential blow-up in code size, and is especially suitable for data-intensive modules. Merging several CFSMs by computing their synchronous product into a single CFSM technique is especially useful for control-dominated modules with a high degree of interaction because it abstracts away all the internal communication between the collapsed CFSMs, thus yielding a dramatically simpler implementation in several cases. What were their gaps in their study or findings? As I read the paper, I haven't noticed any gaps on their research since they stated everything, even the limitations on their study. What are your key takeaways? So for me, my key takeaways from this study is that we may use an engine control unit to test whether we can develop a more sophisticated and advanced design for embedded system, which can perform faster and more efficiently. So for the next study, which is entitled TDD, an embedded systems, a case study. So TDD means test-driven development, which will be explained later. So who have done the work? Who has or have done the work? Sayali A. Kulkarni, Churodata V. Kulkarni, and Rakesh Mehta. What were their goals and objectives? Their goals and objectives was to use test-driven development as an effective development technique to reduce hazards and expensive losses on development of embedded systems. What were their questions? So they wanted to know if TDD will be an effective method to reduce risk on embedded system development. What were their methods utilized on this paper? So here, these are the steps utilized in test-driven development, which is first, identifying a part of system or the module or functionality to be implemented. Simple test program to verify the identified functionality. Compile the code under test and terminate the functional code. Number 4, run the test fails. After that, terminate the non-required functional code. Compile and run the test again. For 7, refactor the functional code to clean the code and remove duplication. And finally, repeat tasks 6 and 7 until the test passes and the functional code is cleanly implemented. What were their findings? So the first finding is the new tests when well written, including the comments present along with the code, act as updated documentation, unlike the separate documentations which need to be frequently updated. Verifying production code using the test cases reduces the risks as the tests are independent of hardware, can be completed even before hardware is ready or when hardware is expensive and scarce. reduce the number of long target compile link, and upload cycles that are executed by removing bugs on the development system. Isolation of hardware, software interaction issues by modeling hardware using simulation and emulation techniques. When the test passes and the production code is refactored to remove duplication, the code is then cleaned and made easy to maintain. Hence, the developer can move to the development of the next modules. For creating the production code and the test cases, the developer needs to truly understand the requirement and must know what the expected desired result to be and what should be suitable test case for the same. The test-driven development forces the developer to analyze critically and design after understanding the requirements of the module. The software is better designed and easily maintainable. It is also loosely coupled and readable, hence makes it easier to manage. Using test-driven development increases the efficiency of the developer as the debugging time is reduced to a great extent. The developer gains confidence to make decisions about the design and can refactor simultaneously knowing that the software will still be working. And lastly, the set of test cases act as a protection layer from the bug. But there are gaps in their study or findings. So for me, when I read the paper, I have seen no gaps on their study since they explained everything fluidly and the problems and solutions as well. What are your key takeaways? So for me, I found out that test-driven development is an effective way to test an embedded system before deployment to reduce potential losses and human hazards. So thank you. That is all.